everybody. We are back for another episode of the Autistic Voice Project. As always, I'm Matt Lowry from Kentucky.
And I am Erin Findley from Napa, California.
And we were talking earlier, and one of the topics that has come up is cross-neurotype communication, because I do a lot of autism evaluations in Kentucky, and inevitably, when you find an autistic kid, you find at least one autistic parent.
Yep.
But what happens if the parents did not know that at least one of them is autistic, that you've been relating to each other as though you are both, in theory, neurotypical?
Surprise!
What happens when you say, oh man, what do you mean your brain works differently than my brain? I don't know what to do with that. And this happens to be one of Erin's specialties, because you are in a mixed neurotype relationship, correct?
I am, indeed. Yes.
So how does that work? Because especially so this is one of the things that I have become really, really fascinated with over the years, because my big relationships, the ones that tended to work out longest, were with other people that are probably autistic or formally diagnosed. Whereas the ones that weren't, we had a lot of stuff. I went through a period of really intense masking when I started working in community mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And not being the true me, it caused a lot of problems with my relationship. And when I hit burnout, I really need a lot more autistic care, that's when things kind of fell apart.
Right.
And this can be an issue. How do you help people find their neurotype? How do you help people communicate needs? How do you help people navigate this whole weird system of figuring out who you are, what you need, how to communicate your needs, and having the partner understand that? Because there's a lot of things that people don't know have words, so it's hard to communicate without the labels. But even if you do have the labels, if the other person isn't able to have a construct in their head of what that means, it's very befuddling.
Yeah, so the first thing that I think about now when a couple comes in, of course, many of my couples who come work with me now already have a sense that one or both of them is autistic or neurodivergent in some way. And you know, that hasn't always been the case. Early on in my career, I would just get, couples, random couples, and we would have to figure it out as we went. And so when that happens, one of the things that I pay very close attention to is, what are people telling me about how their brain and how their processing works when they're telling me other things? So I'm paying attention to how they're sharing things, or what figures of speech they use, or are they using analogies more than similes and metaphors, or are they, like you were mentioning before we hit the record button, are they talking about having an internal monologue and the other person is looking at them like they grew, 3 more heads and a pair of antennae?
I cannot tell you how many. It's fascinating looking at the people, watching their eyes when it hits them that their partner of how many years either has an internal monologue or does not have an internal monologue. Because if you have an internal monologue, it's this constant running thing in your head where you say, I'm going to do this, and then I'll do this, and I'll do this. And then at the end of the night, you can't go to sleep because you can't shut your brain off. And if you have the internal monologue, it's all you've ever known. But if you don't have an internal monologue, what's in there? I just don't understand. And people who don't have it are like, what do you mean? You're hearing ghosts? What is this? What's going on? And
are you hallucinating?
Yeah. Both partners are like, no, what do you mean you don't have this? What do you mean you have this? And then it's this shock that the other partner does not think like they do. And it is
and that
fascinating.
can actually be really scary for people,
yes.
right? Like, especially if you've been together for a really long time, I'm talking multiple decades, right? To find out that there's this person who you quote unquote thought you knew so well, right? Suddenly have this like vastly different experience of the world. It can be really frightening for people. And so
Yes, yes.
part of the work there is helping the people realize that their loved one is that processes the world differently than them is still the same person they've always been.
Right.
It's just now we have different language to wrap around it, and so that gives us an opportunity to do things a little differently that might be awkward at the beginning, but actually creates more opportunity for connection later on.
Which is a really, really good thing, because if
Yeah.
somebody is masking throughout the entirety of the relationship and they feel safe enough to finally unmask, that's a deeper connection than you had previously.
Right, because it's a connection to a more true version of the self.
Yes, yes. And I am a big advocate of that.
Me
So
too.
what happens if, say, you think that you married a neurotypical? Well, what happens if you don't even know that the word neurotypical exists, because at that point you're just quote unquote normal, and then you realize,
Mm,
oh hey, I'm autistic, ADHD, and my partner is neurotypical, and then they
hmm.
say, well, now that you've learned this about yourself, you're starting to act differently. You're starting to flap a little bit more. You're starting to do these things. And it makes me uncomfortable because that's not what I signed up for. What up? How do you
Yeah.
handle that? Because that is a tricky, tricky beast.
That is a tricky moment. And part of it is understanding the power balance that comes from neurotypical, which is a social construct, actually um, not a true neurotype,
Mm.
and and neurodivergent, which is a big ass umbrella that covers a lot of different ways of being.
Including like even anxiety and depression and giftedness.
Yes, those are all under the neurodivergent umbrella. Um, and uh, and so it's it's something where the person who is able to easily fit into society's expectations for what quote unquote normal behavior and thinking is like, that's the person that we call neurotypical. Um, and and that person has the privilege of being comfortable in a dominant system, right? And so whenever privilege gets challenged, whether it's neuroprivilege or whether it's white privilege or whether it's educational privilege or financial privilege or whatever, whenever someone who is in a more privileged position um, encounters the reality of someone has who is in a less privileged group, that they have to they basically have two choices, and these choices are not always consciously chosen. Sometimes they're chosen by sort of default and fear and whatnot, but there's one choice, which is um, basically deny the reality of other people. Um,
That is an
and
unfortunately common one.
and it is a very unfortunate and very common choice. Um, and the other is to sort of flip your mind into the new paradigm, which is, wow, the world is bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And there are more ways of being in the world than I thought there were. And in order for me to start to understand other people, I have to ask them about what their experiences are like. And here's the kicker, then believe them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's a Brene Brown quote, because
Yeah.
you have to assume that other people know about their lives better than you do. So
Right.
that is a toughie for a lot of people, because a lot of people like to assume that they can understand literally anything when they do not have the necessary life experiences to handle that data, to handle that perspective on things.
Well, and
Because
it's also tricky. It's particularly tricky when the experiences that are being described are things they can't see,
yeah, yeah.
right? So, like, if you saw someone in a wheelchair, you could at least have the concept of, like, okay, this person's not walking. Now, you're not going to have the same thing as a lived experience of that. No, no, no. But there's at least a visible difference that you can sort of point to say, yes, that person's life is probably different than mine,
Yeah.
right? But when it's internal, um, like, the way that we process information, or the way that we process emotions, or whether we're precise or broad strokes, big picture, little picture, like all those things. If First of all, we might not even know that that exists,
Yeah.
right? We might not know that somebody doesn't have an internal monologue, or somebody does have, the ability to create, internal moving pictures. I forget all the time that my husband is hyperphantasic. So if I describe something that tastes gross, my husband literally tastes it in his mouth.
This is
And
actually something.
me, as somebody who's mostly hypophantasic, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious because it sounds so gross, and that's as bad as it gets for me. And meanwhile, he's sitting over there practically trying to retch. So
This is
anyway,
actually
I
something that,
interrupt you. Sorry.
yeah, this is something that came up for me a while ago, because so aphantasia is no picture in your brain.
Yes.
Hyperphantasia, very elaborate imaginative scenarios. And
Yeah, like 3D in living color, but not just that, smell-o-vision, taste-o-vision, all the things.
intense, because this is the thing, your brain cannot tell the difference between stuff it generates and the outside world, because
Right.
to the brain it's all sensory data. It
It's all
processes
stuff.
sensory data the same way. And
Yep.
I've met some people who are hyperphantasic, hyperphantasic.
I think it's zh sound, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll have to look it up in the book dictionary.
yeah, but because again, we we have been told a lot that autistic people have no imagination, because of stuff like the ADOS, because the
Mm,
ADOS, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule Second Edition, is a popular autism test given by neurotypical people, and it is a very, very, very flawed test that asks you to play with toys, and if you play with toys wrong, it says that you have no imagination and therefore autistic, because, again, a lot of ableism, a lot of bias goes into making these tests. So
right.
it is a commonly held belief among people that we do not have an imagination, which is very, very wrong. And it's surprising when people are able to come up with very, very elaborate things inside their head. And even
Right.
so far as, imagining fictional characters and having full conversations with these fictional characters. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, very common thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, being able to do all this kind of stuff when the other person doesn't even know that's an option can be
Right.
very, very distressing for both parties.
Right. Yeah. And so part of the issue is helping couples overcome fear, right? Of fear of the unknown, fear that might be generated by thinking the other person really isn't the person that they thought. Part of it is helping the person who has more access to the dominant position come to grips with the need for them to start working to understand the non-dominant position. And then the other piece is helping the couple work through grief and ableism, both externalized ableism and internalized ableism. And the grief is is also often tied to fear, like, is my partner going to be able to respond to me in the way that I want?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes and no, right? They're going to be able to respond to you with love. They have been actually already for many, many years if you're
Yeah.
in a relationship for a long time. But part of the retraining process is helping the person who is more neurotypical receive the way that their neurodivergent loved one, their autistic loved one, is communicating that love, right? Like if I know that that you're communicating love to me by organizing my library behind me, right? Then I need to take some time. If I'm struggling to receive that, then I need to take some time to help me tune into how can I receive that better. And also, if there are ways that I receive it better, that I receive love better, then as my partner would need to learn to tune into me. So it's not, autistic person broken, therefore must tune into allistic or neurotypical person better, so not be broken autistic person. It's like how do we find a way to bridge the gap, right?
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to have the bridge come from both sides, right? You can't just have one person always giving. Now here's another tricky piece though. When you have two people giving from very different starting positions in very different ways, it can sometimes appear to the other person like the neurodivergent person isn't giving as much or isn't giving at all, right?
Yeah.
And so helping, again, the neurodominant person, the more neurotypical person, if you will, helping them start to see that their neurodivergent loved one is in fact giving as much effort as the neurotypical person, but it comes out in a different way. And it might be things that are very easy for the neurotypical person. And so the neurotypical person discounts the effort that is required in order for the neurodivergent person to do it.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like executive functioning stuff, because
Yeah.
when the process complexity kicks in, and this is a big thing about like late diagnosed, not knowing that
Yes.
everything takes way, way, way more effort than all this. But
Yeah.
again, we tend to have different priorities depending on how our brains work. So if
Right.
somebody says, yes, the kitchen was messy, so I reorganized everything. The library was messy, so I reorganized everything. Your car needed to have this thing done. To us, it's, yes, this is a thing that I considered important, and I wanted to gift you this important thing. And they said, but how come you don't bring me flowers? And, well, I was unaware that flowers, because again, my personal perspective is that unless they're planted flowers, they will eventually die and decay, and that's depressing. So I tend not to buy cut flowers. I might buy a bush that you can plant in order to have flowers forever, but I will not buy cut flowers because it seems depressing, and I have been criticized on a number of occasions for being a thoughtless man who does not buy flowers.
Right. When in fact, there's a lot of thought going into your gesture. It's just a very different, it's centered in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a book that Damian Milton edited. Damian Milton is one of the, groundbreaking autistic researchers on autism.
Double empathy
Um,
problem, man.
the double empathy problem man, and the the title of that book is oh yeah, you probably are hearing my dogs right now.
Yeah.
That it's their
He has strong opinions on Milton.
he has strong opinions about the meal that he would like at this moment. Um, but he's not getting it right
Cross
now
species
because it's not
communication
time for
here.
that. Um, but it's a mismatch of salience is the name of the book, and just that alone, like, that is the most beautiful way of summing up, right? If the salient thing is, I want to give you a gift that represents life and love, and something that's dying and will turn to rot here in a few minutes or a couple of days, um, does not symbolize the kind of love that I want to give you, right?
Yeah.
Like, then that would explain very clearly and delightfully why giving cut flowers is not your thing.
Yes.
Right.
I'm a big for people who are just tuning in. We exist in the 21st century. In the mid 20th century, there was this show, and if you don't know it, please look it up. Hopefully, you already do know this show. I loved it, The Addams Family. And they were considered to be a parody of other family oriented shows at the time, because again, like the Honeymooners, they threatened domestic violence a lot, you know, as one does, and it was considered to be a family sitcom. But the Addams Family is considered to be a parody of that, and in doing so, they really loved each other. They were very affectionate and romantic, and they got along quite well. They communicated well. Exactly. Yes. And to an outside, the neighbors thought they were weird and creepy and kooky and spooky, etc. But to each other, they were like, "Ah, yes, I got you these thorns." It's like, "Oh, how great!" And they were very Morticia and Gomez were very much on the same page for all of this. And that's really important, to understand the other person's needs and wants and love language and supports and all this other stuff, because this either you bagged a Morticia or a Gomez, or you got Ralph Cramden. And you know, if
Ralph Cramden, his name? Oh my god. Yeah. That's a horrible name. What a horrible name. Give me Gomez or Morticia any day.
Yeah. No wonder Ralph Cramden was prone to threats of domestic violence. So, yeah. So this is, it's one of those things. I prefer the Gomez Morticia dynamic, because they're so into each other. And this is especially with me, because I am very much about self-care. I'm very much about co-regulation. I am very much about the whole harmony and peace and having a good soundscape and pleasant textures and good tastes. And because again, I've been doing this whole autism thing for many years at this point. I'm getting quite old. And when
I'm still older than you, though.
Oh, well. Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those things. And I have a tendency to, when I meet people, I kind of test the vibe, and I'm like, huh, you like animals, and you like these, and you like these. And if I meet a nice lady who likes all of these things, I will kind of, test out, have you ever heard of this whole neurodivergence thing? And if the response is, why, yes, we're on the same page, and we can go further of like, yes, I'm very sensitive to all these things. Are you? Why, yes, I am. Do you have a library? I have a library. Oh, good. We're there. And this is a way to initiate that conversation of, I would like to make you very comfortable. I would like to info dump about this. Would you like to info dump? I would love to info dump. And then we can info dump back and forth, because info dumping is indeed a love language.
It is.
Having all of these things. And again, that other people might not appreciate this. So, and this is one of those things that if you've been misdiagnosed or undiagnosed all these years, or you didn't know that autism was an option. And all of a sudden you realize, I really, really like talking about rocks. Why can't we talk about rocks more? The other person might say, why are you suddenly talking about rocks so much? And
Right.
the person says, I didn't know talking about rocks was an option.
Right.
Yeah. How do you deal with all that?
Well, it's the same way that, I dealt with my husband who loves baseball, right? You invite the person who doesn't have that particular interest to learn something about that interest so that they can at least know what's going on in the conversation when the topic is baseball or rocks or what have you.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you score big time and end up with two people now in the same relationship who both have a shared interest. Sometimes it's, I'm really into that because you're into it and I love to see you excited, right? That's another valid way of doing it. um Cheers. And sometimes it's, I love and support you doing that and I will do so from afar,
Yeah.
right? Like if you wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, great, bully for you. I'll help fundraise, I'll help, I'll send you funny memes while you're, traveling there or whatever, but don't ask me to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I,
I won't.
I am all about holding someone's purse as they enjoy a roller coaster,
There you
because
go.
I'm very,
Exactly.
I have very, very intense proprioceptive sensitivities. I can't do I can do
Yeah,
fast, I can do movement around, but I can't do fast movement around. So I will hold the
there you go.
purse while she goes on a fast roller coaster and be like, yes, that looks delightful. That looked like a lot of fun from down here. Well done.
Yeah, and then tell me all about it. So
Yeah.
now you, friend, girlfriend, whatever, can relive the joy of the experience,
Yes.
and I can participate in your joy of the experience from my safe spot on the ground.
I do love seeing enthusiasm. I
That's a thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because that autistic joy thing. Uh, Again, there are a lot of people who don't understand that. So, due to the way our brains are connected, we have great big emotions. A lot of people know about the meltdowns and the shutdowns, but they don't know about the autistic euphoria, where we get this sense of intense, uncontrollable happiness. And
Mhm.
it is a joy to behold. And I will sit and I will have a
And it's
gigantic.
infectious.
It is, because again, like, whereas I am terrified to go on roller coasters, I will listen to a passionate info dump about them all day long. Please
Right.
just fill me in. I will live vicariously through your enjoyable experience. It's just that my meat body cannot contain that because I will freak out. So yes, by all
Right.
means, share.
Yeah, so you're tending to your nervous system and you're tending to your partner in a way that works for your body. And
Yes.
so when we're working with couples in that way, you know, it it can be really important for towards the beginning of therapy that the therapist is usually the one who is um helping the clients start to think of ways to bridge the gap because the clients themselves don't have quite enough traction to be able to do that for themselves often. um, and and so that's part of the stabilization process, is like the therapist can offer some ideas for the clients to try out that may or may not be the be all end all idea, but that's good enough for now. And then once the couple gets more connected, they will find their own ideas. And so there's like a stabilization piece up front, and then there's the synergy piece when the couple is really in tune with each other, towards the end of couples therapy, where they're coming up with their own ideas. They're even better than anything I could think of from the beginning.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So when you start off in couples therapy, I have found that a lot of neurotypical people are unaware that needs exist. Because again, we live in a society that tells you that you should just hoist yourself up by your bootstraps, that you should just try suffering, and that, people should just push on through despite being uncomfortable, despite being unhappy, despite having needs not met. How do you communicate that needs exist and that we need to figure them out?
Well, I frame it again. I try to use something concrete that they will understand. Like, um, if you struggle to see without glasses,
Indeed, I
and you
do.
want, and right, and as do I, and I'm super stoked to be wearing and trying out my multifocal astigmatism contact lenses today, daily ones.
Brought to you by
So
Astigmatism Contact Lenses.
no, AccuView, actually.
AccuView, yes. Send us free
Yes.
contact lenses. Go on.
Yeah, please, seriously. I'll use something concrete like, hey, Matt, I've noticed that you read with glasses on. Why is that? And I'll say it kind of playfully because most of the time people know that that's a question with a really obvious answer. But then, they'll say something like, well, I'm nearsighted or, super farsighted or whatever. And so I can't read when I don't have my glasses on. I'll be like, oh, okay, so you have a need there.
Yeah.
And I'll just introduce the word.
Yeah. In
like
reality, I wear glasses
new.
because my eyes have moral failings.
Right. Well, if that's the case, then maybe you should just stop.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because again, it builds character to be blind. It builds lots of character.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I'll do is, particularly, this is more often with men, but it does happen with women too. When I'm working with somebody who feels like they can do all the things.
All the things.
All the things. And then more of the things.
Even more than all. Oh, God. That's so many things.
Right? It's a lot of things. Is I'll ask them, I'll start handing them things. Like when I'm in my office, I'll start handing them just random crap. Like, here, can you hold this pen for me? Can you hold this jug for me? Like all at once. So they don't get to put anything down.
Of course.
Right? They have to carry it all. And I keep giving them things, and it gets progressively more ridiculous. Can you, pick up the couch cushion? Okay, great. Now, can you pick up the entire couch? Right. So to prove the point, there comes a point where they cannot hold anymore.
Yeah.
Without asking for help, or they can't hold anything more without dropping it. Right.
Which usually comes first, because my guess is that they start dropping it before they dare admit that they need help.
Asking for help? No.
Yeah.
That does not happen.
Yeah.
And then once they've dropped the first thing, and I try to sort of plan it so that the first thing they drop is something soft, like a pillow or a Kleenex box or something like that.
Yeah.
So I try to be strategic there.
Hold this Fabergé egg. Now hold this.
Right.
Yeah. I have an anvil for you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't drop that on your foot though. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so usually they drop something. Or usually they look at me with this helpless look on their face like, what, I can't hold all this. So that's the other thing that I will, if they verbally admit they can't do it. That's another place I'll stop. And I'll say, okay,
learned.
Did you ever consider you could hand any of that to your spouse?
Ooh.
Did you ever consider you could tell me no?
Ooh. Oh, those are some mind blowers.
Right. And I just have some really delicious memories of some very, very self-reliant people, again, many men, looking at me like I had just told them that up was down, right was left, and that gravity actually doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, because
Like,
our ability to
yeah.
handle things is directly related to our manhood.
Well, yeah, obviously it's
Yeah,
related to mine.
of course.
Duh.
Yes, yes.
Um, so yeah, but you'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, and that's the thing because again, society conditions us that we have to be these hyper independent, super competent, all knowing, all being individuals because if you have to ask for help, then you are somehow deficient. And this
yeah,
leads to a lot of disability shame because the fact
right,
that we are disabled in a society that is not made for us. This is where
right.
this whole internalized ableism comes from, because
Yes,
we are told that it is a moral failing to not be able to do all the things all the time, forever, always, which
right.
again seems bizarre.
And it's also important for people who are neurotypical or who fit the neurotypical mold more easily to help them realize that they too are victims of ableism,
Yeah, yeah,
right? That every time somebody tells them, "Well, you should go to work even though you're sick,"
right. Have
that
you
that's that's ableism
have
right
you tried
there.
just suffering?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And this is a thing that's taught to us very early with like perfect attendance awards,
Ugh,
that even on days when
barf.
you were sick or you didn't want to go to school or you were scared or whatever, you still went because it
Right.
benefited the system. And that
Right.
this teaches us that if you're sick you still go to work, if you're sick you still do this, as opposed to taking time for self-care and not dying early.
Right. Now, this is not to say that there aren't times that if you have the capacity to do something, even though there are reasons why you might not, this is not to say that it's always bad to go ahead and do the thing that you're not 100% up for,
Yeah,
right? Um, it, it's more like we're trying to swing the pendulum that has gotten stuck too far in one direction back toward the middle,
right.
right? So it's not, you know, I'm not encouraging people to go from never ever taking a sick day for 20 years to, taking 186 days a year just because, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's my semi-annual
unless you're like,
sabbatical.
yeah, right. And again, like if you need that 180 days, fine. I'm not arguing with that. That's not my point. My point is if you don't need that 180 days, I'm not saying take 180 days anyways,
Yeah,
right? I'm saying tune into yourself, and there might be times when you might go ahead and choose to do the thing even though it doesn't feel 100% great. Um and you have reasons, but the thing is you haven't defaulted to a choice,
right, right.
right? And that's where it comes into couples dynamics, because sometimes we do need to do things to bridge the gap with our spouses or our partners that are not 100% natural to us, right? And it's not an inherently bad thing to sometimes do those things. um like there are times in my marriage where I will give my husband an assist to remind him, like this is me being autistic right now. um but a lot of times he remembers it on his own, right?
Yeah,
So he doesn't need the assist. But maybe if he's feeling particularly vulnerable, or if he's had a really bad day, or if he didn't sleep well last night, like I might give him an extra nudge to remind him, to help him frame his mind as he's receiving me, so that that interaction goes more smoothly,
yeah, yeah.
right? And that's not, I don't feel like that's masking. I feel like that's love in action,
And
because
this is
I'm supporting him, support me, and we're doing it together.
yeah, and this is that thing that we call communication, because
Yes.
being able to say, "Ah, yes, I care about you, and I recognize that you've had a busy day. Would you like to do this with me? Would you like to do this together? Would you like to do this? I've noticed that you're doing this. I would like to do this. Would you like to do this with me?" and
Right.
being able to
Right.
invite someone to join you, and to point out, number one, that you each have needs, but also inviting the other person explicitly to come join you and spend time with you, because that's what
Yes.
couples do, because you have decided that you like each other enough to spend a great deal of time together. So,
Right. Right. And also sometimes, we need to kind of compensate for our partners, especially if they're especially if they're over giving types. Like, again, going back to my own relationship, I love my husband dearly, and he gets great pleasure in giving me everything I ask for. Now, that is lovely. It's lovely. And also, I know that there are times that when he goes into that mode, he's bypassing his own needs.
yeah.
And so I have learned that the question I need to ask him at that time is, if you were on your own, what would you do? Right?
Interesting.
Because then he tells me the truth about what he wants. And then I can say, what you just described actually sounds fine to me, or sounds good to me. Let's do that. Right? So
What
he'll
does he
often yield to me.
what does he like to do on his own? Because my first answer is stare into the void.
I mean, he's a big reader. He
Ah,
loves to read. So, the number of pictures I have on my phone of him reading with the cat in his lap, um, probably numbers in the hundreds, if not thousands. And it's a glorious sight to behold, because he, like you, is a burly guy with a beard. And so you see, like, burly guy with beard, curled up with a cat in his lap with a book. That is the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
very peaceful. Yes.
Very peaceful, very sweet, very cute. It's just adorable. Um, you know, but he also, he enjoys going to movies. He enjoys going out to eat dinner. He enjoys baseball. All of those kinds of things. And so those might all be options that he might do on his own. And so it's like, you know what? I could totally go out to dinner with you tonight. Or if it were up to you tonight, maybe I would stay at home in my PJs, but you want to go out and grab a burger and go to the bookstore. You know what? That sounds great. Let's do it.
So discussing like menu options of stuff that the
Yeah.
other person likes, where you can say, would you like to do this? I've noticed that you like doing this. And
Yeah.
you might even remind somebody that they like doing this, rather than staring
Exactly.
into the void.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
These
Yes.
seem like very good options for a relationship stuff.
It's
So
true.
yeah, but yeah, I think that this is a topic that we will revisit on occasion,
Of course.
and
I'm sure.
we will be we are figuring out how to do a sort of class on how to do this. But it's something that I just came up with today, so we're going to work out the details. So if you would like to join us, drop a comment, send us an email. Was it podcast@autisticvoiceproject.com?
Yep, that's correct. Podcast at autisticvoiceproject.com.
So if you're interested in this, drop us a line. We'll see how many people are interested in such a thing, and we will go from there. But it's been great joining you for another podcast. Thank you for listening to us.
Always. So much fun.
We will see you again next time.
Sounds good.
Have a good one.